Good evening. Welcome to This Week in Turkey. Tonight we'll be talking about President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's return to the Justice and Development Party with Professor Yüksel Taşkın, welcome, who's formerly associated with Marmara University but lost his position due to a decree. Mr. Taşkın is a professor of political science.
Yes.
So, Mr. Taşkın, let's start with a very simple and straightforward question for those viewers who may not be 100% familiar with the intricacies of Turkish politics. So what does President Erdogan's return to the AKP really mean? Why is it significant? And why, if it is so, why is it meaningful?
There are certain points here. First of all, this is the most significant step towards party state in Turkey. Something strange in the 21st century. There will be other steps, of course, following this. However, at the practical level, he was actually in de facto control of the party. But his political instincts, his survivalism, let's say, forces him to have full control of any institution. All power centers must be controlled by him. That's his political understanding. So that's why even when he was in de facto control of the party, he was increasingly becoming skeptical about a potential dissidence, opposition within the party. So Erdogan is quite successful in crushing any potential element of opposition in any circle around his movement. He believes that actually, maybe more than other rivals, political rivals from Republican People's Party, from other parties, his most significant concern, I believe, is his own party. Mm-hmm. He believes that this is his own party, and he's increasingly becoming alarmed, suspicious about a potential dissidence within the party. He wants to crush it, but sometimes when you try to crush something, you may unexpectedly create an opposition. So his, let's say, efforts to crush any potential opposition may actually create an opposition, I believe. But for outsiders who are trying to understand politics in Turkey, we can say that the last package composed of 18 articles, it was a move to create a party-state identification in Turkey. The most powerful person of Turkey will be Erdogan in 2 years, according to the procedure. Actually, in simple terms, he will be in control of 75% of all constitutional political power. Maybe for the time being, that would be sufficient to say. Another point here that can be added, AKP has a membership of 10 million. So this is an incredible number, but Erdogan never lets the party to be an institution. So for a party to be an institution, it should have some sort of autonomy of decision-making. Certain policies must be decided there. There should be participation, objections, so on and so forth. This mechanism is never tolerated to exist. So this means it is a gathering of 10 million people without any institutional feature. Mm-hmm. The more Erdogan's charisma or personalistic politics is there will be no chances for the party to be an institution. Mm-hmm. Okay?
So this also means a transformation within the party's organizational structure, just like you mentioned from what I gather from your comments. What you've said is by crushing potential dissidents, he's disabling the party to become an institution.
Of course, this is a dilemma of charismatic leaders versus institutions. Mm-hmm. As long as charismatic leaders are in politics, as long as they feel powerful, their parties, organizations, movements have no chance for institutionalization. That's why Weber introduced this term, routinization of charisma. Sometimes routinization takes place when the leader is alive. Sometimes it can take place only when a leader dies, as in the case of Franco. Mm-hmm. Until Franco died, there was no chance of political change, actually. But as soon as he died, many people started complaining about his era. Even his seeming allies complained about frozen politics, so on and so forth. So Erdogan, I believe, is a kind of a political gambler, and he is pushing, he's oppressing, he's trying to do his best, but maybe this may create an environment that may actually work unlike his desire of controlling everything. So trying to control everything may create an environment of losing of control, in simple terms. Yeah.
We now have a news video in line about Erdogan's return to AKP. We'll watch the video and then we'll be back in the studio with Mr. Taşkın.
President Erdogan has become a member of the ruling AKP after 3 years following the 18-article constitutional package that was accepted by popular vote on April 16th. Although the majority of the proposed constitutional change will be put into effect after general and presidential elections to be held in November 2019, 3 articles of this package have entered into force instantly. These 3 articles include the president's membership to a political party, the reorganization of the Supreme Council of Judges and Prosecutors, and abolishing the military justice system. On Tuesday, with a ceremony at the party headquarters, Erdogan signed the membership declaration and became a member of the AKP again after a 3-year hiatus. Even if it felt like centuries, I am particularly excited that our 979-day-long separation, which is like a drop in the historical continuity, is at an end, Erdogan said at the ceremony. His membership marked a first in Turkish political history since 1961, when the post-coup constitution debarred presidents from retaining party membership. At the ceremony, Prime Minister and the current chairman of the AKP, Binali Yıldırım, also made a speech and saluted Erdogan's membership. We decided to hold our extraordinary Congress on May 21st. With new excitement, new hope and beginning, we will bring our president forward as the candidate for the leadership, Yıldırım said. Erdogan is expected to be the only candidate at the Congress. On the other hand, a revision within the party organization and the cabinet is also expected to be underway before the campaigning process of the 2019 general and presidential elections.
Mr. Taşkın, my next question is about the very recent and fierce confrontations between different cliques within the AKP. You may have followed. Most of these were public. They were on Twitter, actually. And they include attacks by some of the less Islamist individuals within or close to the party. These people have been attacking the more openly Islamist ones and vice versa. So what do you think Erdogan's return to AKP means for the confrontations between these different cliques? Do you think his return may somehow settle these disputes within the party?
You know, there were also purges before. So many Islamist people, figures who dared to criticize the leadership, actually they were silently put aside and they were not nominated as candidates to be a member of parliament. Ertuğrul Yalçınbayır, Abdülatif Şener, I can count so many names. This is not the first time that leadership is trying to purge certain people known as Islamists. Here, there is a very simple tension here. Leader requires unquestioning loyalty. There is even no space, room for constructive criticism. You should prove your unquestioning loyalty to the leadership, to the leader, or to the close circle of the leader. And the more you are displaying your loyalty, the more chances to be put in a higher position. What does this mean? Ambitious but untalented people can climb up the political, the opportunities would be there for them. But this means loss of quality, of course. In ruling the party, in ruling the state, in ruling the bureaucracy, this means a loss of quality. For Islamists, they also have a dilemma. There is a very simplistic reasoning they have. This is their argument, Islamist figures' argument. Erdogan is an extraordinary, charismatic leader with very good intentions, but his close circle is very, very bad. They don't have good intentions, so he's encircled. If you are a very good person, how can you be encircled by very This is a very simple, I believe, logic. It's very childish. Why it is very childish? They don't have, I have to say, they can't dare to criticize what's going on in Turkey. So they can't have, they can't create constructive criticism. They are not consistent in their criticism. So the more they accept this, one-man show in politics, the more they will create this kind of inconsistencies. They should think about their so-called dawah, religious mission. They think that they believe that they have a mission, but is this mission less important than certain people or leaders? If mission is more important, they should act accordingly. If leader is 100% in line with the mission, then what about these people, coming from non-Islamist sources who are known for their ambitious orientation? So this is quite interesting, but I believe there are tensions, especially people outside of the AKP's power horizons, people who don't have so much to lose. These people may start real criticism. There are problems within this movement. So I believe these are signs for future maybe splits. But the way they debate about the issues are very, very, illogical and disillusioning for me. So there should be real criticism about the fact that we just voted a referendum and 75% of political powers will be vested in a single person. This is not a democracy anymore. Okay, so they talk about a new board of judges and prosecutors, and we know that this new board will never bring justice or democracy. Nobody talks about this. So these are real issues. There are incredible human rights violations in the prisons, in the real life. So these Islamist people are incredibly insensitive to these human rights violations. So what is their mission? They talk about compassion. They talk about being sensitive to victim people in Africa, elsewhere. What about Turkey? So there is incredible double standards. Maybe an inertia, maybe an incredible decline in their intellectual qualities. Maybe these problems will be felt subsequently, not now. But eventually, I believe Islamists are going to lose their intellectual, let's say, attraction capacity. There is an incredible decline because they fail to overcome one man's authority. In certain moments, you have to criticize and overcome a single person's authority to save your own political will and your free will, let's say. So they are in a test, continuous test. They always fail in this test, I believe.
These are very interesting comments, and you've mentioned that due to the lack of room for constructive criticism, ambitious yet untalented individuals were able to rise within the party structures, as you've mentioned.
This is what happens in authoritarian regimes.
And this is somehow reminiscent of Prime Minister Yıldırım's comments following the July 15th coup attempt. If you may remember, he said that from now on they will make sure that meritocratic structures will be given priority. So do you think this will be the case in the second era of the AKP? Do you think the ambitious yet untalented individuals will somehow be eliminated?
Prime Minister and Numan Kurtulmuş made historical confessions. Actually, the reason why Gülen community was able to control many crucial positions within the state was this selfishness, egoism. What does this mean? For example, look at certain areas that Gülen community was promoted. They promoted Gülen community to eliminate social democratic or other democratic forces. So what does this mean? They disobeyed the constitutional article making meritocracy an obligation. We have an article in Constitution. According to this article, when state hires people, it should obey certain meritocratic criteria. But we know that they did not obey. At the end, a right-wing junta tried to introduce a coup d'etat, which turned to be abortive. So this is a confession. Then they said that we will open the state to all ranks of society. another confession. But did they realize it? No, because let me give you a simple example here. Imagine that you are an Alevite youngster with this name, Cem Haydar Bektaş, a typical Alevi name. He has no chances to be able to pass this, exam. After the written examination, there are interviews. We know that same wine in the new bottle, maybe. So, despite they made confession, they still go on with old egoistic tradition of exclusion, the rivals. This cannot be a state policy, actually. But for our society, who are not happy with what's going on in Turkey, this should be a lesson. In the future, if we are able to create a civilian constitution, this should be a significant point that a state should be open to all ranks of the society. This is the only way that can increase state legitimacy. For example, personally, I believe when state institutions hire people, there should be no oral interviews. Only exams should be. This is my point. So the confession they made and what they are doing is a clear lesson for the future.
We now have another news video in line on AKP's transformation from its establishment until today. We'll watch the video and then we'll be back in the studio with Professor Taşkın.
On Tuesday, President Erdogan rejoined the Justice and Development Party. In the ceremony organized to honor his resigning of membership to the party, Erdogan said,
27 Ağustos 2000
"Today, I return to the party that I founded, my home, my passion, my love." Erdogan had to leave the party in 2014 to become the president of the republic.
Saadet istiyorsak mutlaka ahlaklı insan temin etmemiz lazım.
The majority of the Kurds that founded the AKP were among the members of the Islamist Welfare Party established in 1983 after the 1980 coup d'etat had shut down all political parties in Turkey. The Welfare Party, founded by Necmettin Erbakan, was the representative of the Islamist movement, known as the National Vision, in the Turkish political scene, which was shaped after the coup. The Welfare Party's first major political gain was its victory of the 1994 local elections, where it won the municipality of Istanbul under the leadership of Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Erdogan and his friends were among the reformist wing inside the Welfare Party. The Welfare Party won the general elections in 1995, but it was closed down in 1998 on the basis that the party had violated constitutional obligations to respect the country's secular principles. The Welfare Party Kurds established the Virtue Party and the deputies joined the newly founded VP. However, the VP, which was one of the opposition parties at the time, was also closed down by the Constitutional Court in 2001. In the same year, Erdogan, Abdullah Gül, Bülent Arınç, and others who were among the reformist wing inside the National Vision movement established the AKP with the claim to be a conservative democratic party. Instead of following the Islamist agenda, the AKP sought to integrate itself within the global system and emphasized their focus on democratization. In November 2002, the AKP won a landslide victory in the general elections and earned an absolute majority in the parliament. From 2002 onwards, the AKP won every general election it entered, as well as the municipalities of the majority of big cities. In 2007, the AKP's ruling Kurds established an alliance with the Gülen movement in their fight against the secular establishment of the country. After their common enemy was eliminated, a new clash emerged, this time between the Gülen movement and the AKP. The then Prime Minister Erdogan began to monopolize his power inside the party. For Erdogan, the Gezi protests of 2013 and the subsequent corruption scandal involving his family were directly targeted at him and his powers.
Sayın Cumhurbaşkanı, değerli hanımefendi.
Erdogan started to marginalize key AKP members, including important founding figures such as Abdullah Gül and Bülent Arınç, who had not overtly gave him their unconditional support and remained critical against his response to these events. In 2013, when Erdogan was elected as the president by popular vote, many expected Abdullah Gül to replace him.
Mr. Taşkın, my next question to you is about the changes that will be underway in the second Erdogan, during the second Erdogan era in the AKP. We may have touched upon these in your previous responses. However, I want to ask once again, I mean, if possible, would you be able to list us the headings under which the main changes will occur or are likely to occur in Erdogan's new leadership in the AKP?
There are some optimist people who would like to see AKP is returning to its 2002 let's say agenda. But I don't expect this type of a shift. This is possible, but quite marginal possibility, I believe. Instead, he will continue like this. And what does this mean? Actually, he created a very novel group of people around himself. These people are about 30 people, 30 advisors, maybe more than 30, around this number. And these advisors are de facto. They were de facto in control of certain ministries. Now, in 2 years, they will be de jure ministers. These people who did not struggle in politics, who did not struggle to be a member of parliament, will be automatically, appointed as ministers. This will create, I believe, an incredible bureaucratic oligarchy. Generally, right-wing movements or Islamist movements, they tend to target bureaucratic oligarchy. But I believe what they are doing is to build maybe the strongest bureaucratic oligarchy in politics of Turkey, if they are able to do so. Because the way they are trying to push the society may also create unexpected tensions. A strong opposition is also possible. So what's the point here? This tradition has been always criticizing tutelary system, tutelage system. And they are now in the way of creating a one-man tutelage. Maybe the strongest tutelary system in Turkey they are about to create. What does this mean? They are moving Turkey away from all democratic procedures and experiences we have. And society is not happy about this. The recent referendum, which was realized under incredibly unequal conditions, despite these inequalities, despite lack of access to media, despite suppression of economic actors, political actors, what happened? Almost 49% of the people said no to this referendum. I expect and believe that if they continue like this, if they think that they are the only legitimate actor that can represent Turkey, which is totally against the logic of democracy, In democracy, people and parties lose elections, they go and have a rest, and if they are again successful, they return. But these people really believe that they are the embodiment of the nation. So they really believe that even when they lose elections, they should be there. They don't have this courage to accept, a loss of election, a defeat in the elections. But as long as they continue like this, I believe dynamic sectors of Turkey, young people, urban metropolitan people, so they will develop. What they need is to learn to form democratic alliances. When we look at the literature of transition from authoritarian regimes, political actors' talent to build democratic alliances is very crucial. And in this referendum, I really observed an incredibly fast learning by the people. So they really learn very fast, and I'm quite optimistic about if they continue like this, they will also create their own gravediggers, if we use a Marxist term here. They are very blind because they did not tolerate constructive criticism. That's why they are blind to these, alarming, processes. And if they stick to continue like this, society will try to do its best to get rid of them, I believe.
I was actually meaning to ask you as my final question, the one challenge, the main challenge that will be faced by the AKP during in Erdogan's second era, but you, in a way, have already responded to this But still, if I may ask you to name one major challenge which will likely be faced by the AKP, what would that be?
Economy, but freedoms too. For example, young people voted mostly no, but it is like a kind of sense rather than a political. They are waiting their sense to be politically turned into a discourse. So young people are not happy because they feel that the social life they are accustomed to is contradicting with the authoritarianism Erdogan is trying to build. City people are not happy because they believe that if Turkey is becoming disconnected from the West, so many people will economically lose. It's not just economy, however. Many people are sensing that their freedoms are also in danger. So that's why the number of people who are discontented, who are not happy with this, let's say, authoritarian turn, their numbers are in the rise. They also have qualified actors. Civil society actors were very successful in this referendum. Even 90-year-old political parties followed the agenda set by civil society groups in the referendum process. This is a good sign for the future. An active, dynamic civil society, if they act in tandem with political parties, they may have a political future. So this is my optimism. I believe this is what deserves to be in a struggle for.
Thank you very much for your comments, Professor Taşkın, and for joining us tonight here in the studio. We'll continue with our next news video. Our friend Gülener Kırnalı did an exclusive interview with Kati Piri for Medyascope this week. Ms. Piri is a Dutch member of the European Parliament and the EU's Turkey rapporteur.
In the very near future, things will remain very tense and difficult if we don't see some signals of improvement in Turkey. Today we have World Press Freedom Day. At the moment when there are more than 150 journalists in jail. For instance, yesterday we had an event here with some of the family members of the Cumhuriyet journalists. Give the signal, if you really take it seriously, release the journalists. If you take the process seriously and you care about your European perspective, stop the state of emergency. If you take it serious, release Demirtas, who is an opposition leader. I mean, we have to see signals from Turkey that they're really serious about this European perspective before we can also engage in a positive talk. Now, I think we should always have the dialogue. So I welcome when there are meetings with the Turkish government and EU officials. I don't think there can be meetings enough. So it's good that Turkey wants the summit. It's good because we need a dialogue. We cannot just do it over press releases. We need to see if the Turkish government is serious, if the president is serious, that he wants the EU accession process. It's also time he gives the signal, indeed, that he wants to take this up. And there's no country which can blackmail itself into the European Union, nor can the Turkish government.
Turkey's recent airstrikes on Kurdish targets in Syria and Iraq have jeopardized the relations between the US and Turkey. US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu discussed the issue over a telephone call this week.
The developments following Turkey's airstrikes on the Kurdish regions of Syria and Iraq continue to have reflections on the US-Turkey relations. The tension between the two allies has escalated once again due to the lack of coordination during the airstrikes. During the week, US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu had a phone call discussing the issue. The phone call came weeks before the first face-to-face meeting between President Trump and President Erdogan. Late last month, Turkey had conducted airstrikes on the PYD-controlled Kurdish regions of Syria and Iraq. US backing the PYD forces as part of the operation against ISIS in Syria has been a point of tension between Washington and Ankara, which considers the PYD a terrorist organization. We will decide what we will do when the time comes. We may, all of a sudden, go there overnight, said President Erdogan regarding the operations. Chief of General Staff Hulusi Akar also added that the operations will continue as long as the threat prevails. We are assessing the situation and will decide accordingly. However, the lack of coordination between the Turkish and US forces during an operation on a US-supported group escalated the tension between Ankara and Washington. According to Hürriyet Daily News, a senior military officer from the Center of Operations of the Turkish Armed Forces said that at the time when US and Russian military attaches were informed that an air operation would be conducted at these certain coordinates, a special US unit was about 10 kilometers south of these coordinates, and only after a short while from that talk, jets were in the air. Gönül Tol, the executive director of the Middle East Institute's Turkey program, added in an interview on Medyascope that the US sees Turkey's uncoordinated military action, which has threatened American forces, as unacceptable. Regarding the issue, on Tuesday, Tillerson and Çavuşoğlu had a phone call which showed the level of tension between the allies. In an article on Al Monitor, Amberin Zaman noted, relying on 3 anonymous sources familiar with the details of the exchange, that the phone call went horribly. Çavuşoğlu's surely defensive explanation of why Turkey had ignored US calls to back off and bombed the headquarters of the YPG on Mount Karachok didn't cut any ice. This phone call came weeks before the first face-to-face meeting between President Trump and President Erdogan. The two leaders are expected to meet on May 16-17 in Washington, discussing the future of Syria, the case of Reza Zarrab, and the extradition of Fethullah Gülen.
Our friend Zeynep Ekmekçi did an exclusive interview this week with Joost Hilterman on the future of post-ISIS Iraq and Syria. Mr. Hilterman is the Middle East and North Africa Director of the International Crisis Group.
Yeah, I think the key is that we need to look at what does the local population want. And the local population, of course, is highly diverse. But in the key areas are areas that have been in the past Sunni Arab areas in Iraq and in Syria. And the Sunni Arab population, ever since 2003 in Iraq, but also since the failed uprising in Syria in 2011, has a deep grievance about being disenfranchised, killed, bombs, the weapons used against it. So if we don't address, I should take one more step. The Islamic State took advantage of this and has effectively taken over a number of the Sunni Arab areas and has governed it, but not in a very good way, obviously, sometimes very cruel, and is now in the process of being driven out. Whether that will succeed or not, we'll have to see, but it doesn't look good for the Islamic State when it comes to territorial control. So what is going to replace it? Who is going to govern these areas? Is it going to be the Iraqi government in northern Iraq? Is it going to be the Syrian regime in northern Syria? You have to see. They haven't done a very good job in the past. In fact, they are part of the problem. They created the possibility for Daesh, for the Islamic State to come in. But who is going to rule these areas? Who's going to govern them effectively? Is it going to be the PKK? It's not going to work. Is it going to be other Kurdish parties or the Shia militias in Iraq? It's not going to work. So it has to be local people. That is the post-conflict planning that ought to be happening, but that I haven't really seen happening. I don't think the United States has the appetite and the interest to do that kind of serious work that basically involves rebuilding of state institutions. That's not what this administration wants to do, and so then the question is, well, who will fill the vacuum? And if the vacuum is filled by the wrong groups, and it almost inevitably will be the wrong groups, because just about everybody else is a wrong group, if it's not the local people, then I expect, in fact, an escalation of conflict in the future.
Today is Hıdrellez. Now let's have a look at what's on in Istanbul next week and how Hıdrellez is being celebrated throughout the country.
The 12th International Film Festival will be on in movie theaters this weekend. The festival, in which the films of the working class meet the world, is held between the 3rd and the 7th of May. 61 films from 15 different countries will be released simultaneously in Istanbul, Ankara, Izmir and Diyarbakır. Istanbul is hosting a brand new festival, Zorlu PSM Jazz Festival, which looks at music from a broad perspective while adopting its polyphony is taking place for the first time between the 3rd and the 12th of May. Zorlu PSM Jazz Festival, which will also feature shades of blues, electronic, ethnic, funk, indie, classic, pop and rock, will position itself in the middle of the art and culture scene of the city until the end of next week. Tonight, the festival will host Jan Garbarek, a talented jazz saxophonist who is also a renowned representative of classical and world music. Garbarek will be accompanied by famous Indian percussionist and composer Trilok Gurtu. Celebrating Kıdrellez in the neighborhood of Ahırkapı has become a steadfast tradition for many people living in Istanbul, ever since the first one was held in 2000. Tonight's celebration starts at 7 p.m. as thousands will come out to hang out in the neighborhoods Keresteci Hakkı Street and Şadırvan Street. This lively public event is completely free of charge and it will feature wandering musicians, lots of spontaneous dancing as well as jumping over bonfires.
That's all from This Week in Turkey. Thanks for watching and hope to see you again next Friday at 9 p.m. Bye.